All right, this is what's been driving me crazy. I know that Albert Lee Terry Jr., member of the Zodiac from Vallejo, California, is the person that put together this envelope from the Cherry Joe Bates murders. The one that went to the Press Enterprise at 3512 14th Street in Riverside, California. Because this is his artwork. As you can see, there's all kinds of artwork in here. But what I can't figure out is what is he trying to tell the people who are going to see this in the newspaper based on the murders, which is what they're counting on. This is their test run. This is them showing each other that this can work, which later turned into the Z408 and the Z, um, whatever the Z's are. Is it Z340, right? Exactly. But I have an idea because I've done so much of their coding work, right? So right here, there's this thing right here. So this is a woman, right, with the long hair. So it's saying RE. So RE, whatever RE stands for, reference, refer, whatever. And then the SS. So it's saying the REUSS Enterprise, right? So the USS Enterprise was in NAS Alameda, and that's where most of the Zodiac people were based, right? But this guy somehow is in Southern California because he's associated with this murder in Riverside, and he's creating all these images in the first person as if this were him that did this stuff and this was him that was involved in this. So how or when was Albert Lee Terry Jr. in Southern California? And I'm looking for a clue. I'm like, there's somewhere there has got to be a clue that puts this guy down here in Riverside, right? Because I can't get into his military records, especially because they're covering these murders up. So it's very difficult. But I know the code. So I kept looking and I kept looking and I said, this 35 is just sitting by itself, right? And in the Navy, the ships have numbers. So the USS Enterprise is CVN 65. So I was doing some addition, subtraction, and all this stuff. And I got some numbers that I could put into a theory. But I was like, I don't have enough to be solid on that theory. But this 35 is just sitting by itself. It's close together. This and that are pictures. If you look at it upside down, you see this guy right here, then there's a girl right here upside down. I'm not going to flip it because I'm on Reddit. And so I think that's Charlie and Ellen, right? So he's trying to send a message to Charlie and Ellen, who are in Northern California. They live in San Francisco, and she works at NAS Alameda, I think, as an assistant to a photographer's mate in the intelligence reconnaissance division that's stationed on the USS Enterprise, right? So I'm saying 35. That must be some kind of squadron, some kind of ship, something, right? So I go and I look up Navy Command 35, 1966, right? Because this letter was written in 67, the murder was in 66. And I get Sea Control Squadron 35, VS 35, known as the Boomerangers, which was an anti-submarine surface squadron of the United States Navy. I'm like, bingo. So let's go back. An anti-surface squadron for submarines. Hello. See that? That's the submarine or the ship and the plane. So that could be Enterprise aircraft carrier, right? But it also could be the anti-submarine and surface sea control squadron 35. So I'm like, okay, well, where is Sea Control Squadron 35? Sea Control Squadron 35 was established at Naval Air Station Los Alamitos in 1961. But in 1962, the squadron was relocated to NAS North Island, California, and was aboard the USS Hornet. North Island, California is in San Diego. Okay. So I went to Google Maps. This is North Island, NAS, Naval Air Station. Do you remember in the Darlene Ferrin murder, we kept saying that the police asked her sister who were her best friends, and she said the blonde that worked at the Waffle House and a guy by the name of Lee who used to bring her presents every time he came back from Tijuana, right? And we said that the police never found that Lee because the owner of the Waffle House's last name was Lee, and they transposed that. And in the police reports, they talked about how they had interviewed the Lee, but if it was actually the owner, she would have said the owner of the Waffle House and the blonde at the Waffle House, not the Lee that used to bring her presents from Tijuana. Guess where Tijuana is from NAS North Island? Right here. Right? The bottom of the base. Right here. Just Tijuana River is right below National Research Center is right below the base. So if we can place Albert Lee Terry Jr. as a person working in operations for Sea Control Squadron 35, the Boomerangers, down at North Island, San Diego, right above Tijuana, that would make sense that he's the Lee that when he comes home to Vallejo, he brought Darlene Ferrin presents. That connects Cherry Joe Bates, Darlene Ferrin, Albert Lee Terry Jr. to these letters. He's already connected to that because of the artwork that he does. But that would be definitive to put him in Southern California at a base that would give him access to Riverside, California. So what the code says here to me is he's saying, please RE the USS Enterprise from Squadron 35 at NAS North Island, right? From 3512 14th Street, Riverside, California, because that's where the letter went that is going to be in the newspaper, and that is the actual place that he's sending the message. So he's saying, hey, here's part of the message coming from 3512 14th Street from the Press Enterprise, REUSS Enterprise, coming from Albert Lee Terry Jr. from Squadron 35, the Sea Control Squadron, the Boomerangers from Naval Air Station, North Island in San Diego. I'm going to go to Tijuana, grab some presents. I'll see you guys when I get back to Vallejo. That's what I think. And I bet that that's what we would find if we had the ability to access his record. All right, this is what's been driving me crazy.